Hello, Fire fans and friends. Grab a seat by the bonfire, get your favorite beverage ready, and we are ready to talk about the Chicago Fire. I'm Tim Hotsey. Joining me is DJ.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Speaking Spanish, estoy bien. And Eray.
Hello, I'm so happy to be out of Ohio.
And back in Wisconsin, in case the accent didn't make that entirely clear. And Joe Titman.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started.
My intro. Sorry. Okay. Ohio. Bleep that out and make it fun.
Okay.
God dang it, Eray.
Go ahead. Sorry, I had to. I couldn't resist. I won't interrupt anymore. Go ahead, Tim.
Less than a minute in, we're already running off tracks. This is going to be a great episode. We've got a lot of one, guys.
Sorry, but you weren't in Ohio, Tim. You don't understand. Fuck Ohio. All right.
Austin's got to rickroll the audience now. God dang it, Eray.
Tim, I'm so sorry. I will shut up for at least 60 seconds.
No, you don't have to shut up. Just, don't make Austin bleep people out because that just gets, after a while, it's more work for him. And he's a hard enough working man as it is.
It's a single syllable, so maybe it'll be easier. Sorry, Austin. Love you.
It would be funny if we did an episode where we did a ton of spoonerisms, those words that sound like swear words that are and then he just ducked himself and it wasn't anything bad, but it just made Austin be like, wait, was that? So we'll play with your head at some point, Austin. April Fool's Day is coming up. Not going to say it's then. Anyways, Austin's really the person. Then. Austin is the person that powers the entire podcast.
I did this. I'm sorry. All right.
So we're just going to roll on from this smoothly as I can because there's no smooth transition from that part of the conversation. So normally we start with news updates. There is not a lot that has been happening in CF97 land that I think we really have to get into. One of the first things that kind of came up is the roster rules are out for the US Open Cup. They haven't really been publicly released or discussed yet, but Min and Red 97, me, I guess, have obtained a copy of the roster competition guidelines, and they specify what players are and are not eligible for playing in the US Open Cup this season. And it's essentially an unchanged version of the rules from previous years, but basically no special dispensations for MLS Next Pro players or MLS first team players playing into Next Pro. So what that means is basically a player could be a first team player technically, but they have to be making under DP or TAM money. They have to be on at least a 90-day loan. So this can't be like an emergency. You play in the cup on Wednesday and you play for the first team on Saturday kind of thing. And they have to average under 15 minutes a game as of the matches this weekend. So that pretty much precludes any irregular starters. There's a maximum of 7 first team players that are eligible. So basically it means that teams have to be playing their real first team rosters and nothing more throughout the competition. Kind of disappointing, I think, to a lot of people that expected some teams, including the Fire, to want to field a much stronger roster, but it is what it is. I understand that it's been a subject of negotiation between the league and the U.S. Soccer Federation. So, DJ, you had basically a rundown of the players that you thought that are on the first team roster technically that you think may make Open Cup appearances. Do you want to run that through for us?
Realistically, the only ones that I think could are probably Misa Rodriguez, Sergio Orhel, Javi Casas, Brian Dowd, Jeff Gall, Victor Becerra, and if he's still in Chicago, Justin Reynolds. But if does play in the Open Cup, that means he's not going to be playing with Lugano. So it's kind of a thing there.
So the Lugano deal, basically, it looks like, I don't know if this is public information that has been discussed or not. I don't think it's especially private, but the deal fell apart basically because MLS wanted to categorize Reynolds as being a player that was basically an intra-party loan, meaning he would stay on the roster. But in Switzerland, he would occupy an international roster slot, which is a limited kind of slot in the Swiss league. So it basically meant he would be taking up precious resources on 2 separate clubs if he did get a loan, which made the deal go through because, everyone wants Justin Reynolds, I think, to get minutes that are competitive. But that didn't seem like it was the right way to go about doing it when it would essentially kind of hamstring both clubs at the same time.
It's unfortunate because right now, I know during preseason, Reynolds is playing a lot of defensive midfield. And right now it'd be nice to see him, but considering how the midfield's been going, I don't think that's possible.
Could be though for MLS Next Pro, and it could be in the Open Cup, which I think that teams that have invested in their academies, teams that have good homegrown players and stuff like that will have an advantage out of the MLS Next Pro squads in this competition. So how are we feeling? Open Cup, we're going to actually do a full preview next episode, but Joe and Eray, like you guys probably or may not be on that episode. So how are you guys feeling?
I feel good.
All right. Short and to the point.
I had to give you a response. I just don't have enough opinion on it.
Yeah, I just hope that if like what DJ said, if they bring some of these first team players, I mean, I guess it's an opportunity to see what they can do. I mean, it's just going to be hard, especially if they're going to have to play. Like, what are the first teams that are actually playing?
It's basically the who's who of American MLS teams that didn't make the continental competition. So you're looking at teams like LAFC, Atlanta United, the Houston Dynamo are back as returning champions. I'm trying to remember the rest of that list, but there are a number of good teams there. I think that the cutoff more or less was NYCFC's MLS Next Pro team is in instead. So I think that basically you had to be above them in the standings.
Doesn't make any sense to me. I think you would put the worst first teams in, but unfortunately, it is what it is.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it seemed to be a subject of negotiation between U.S. Soccer and there's going to be a story that we're going to be having coming out either on Min and Red 97 or I may publish it somewhere else. But a story coming out about the process that led to these decisions, and this U.S. Soccer Federation really wanted there to be top MLS teams in, not like, teams that were at the bottom of the standings in the Open Cup to field the most competitive teams that were that they possibly could get. And so they kind of agreed on that. And then they discussed what competitive meant. One of the options was going to be using 2024 results. MLS apparently was not that interested in that. Basically, it seems like if you believe that one of the goals of MLS through this process was not to have Messi ever try to see if he could do it like on a, hot, sweaty night in Birmingham or whatever, like that seems to have been one of the objectives. And that was guaranteed as a result of this because Inter Miami are in CONCACAF Champions Cup because of their Leagues Cup finish, although not their performance in the actual, like MLS regular season last year, which I think is kind of interesting and worth noting. But that is where we are. I don't think that it's wrong if you're going to have limited participation for it to be top teams. I just, think that it should be broader participation. And I think that it should certainly, if teams are going to have to enter a squad of one kind or another, they should be able to play the players they want.
That's what I think. I mean, you would think it's like if you're going to have that, you can have the Kutsiases and, all those other players that maybe don't get all the first team minutes, but give them a chance to actually play in a competitive match. I thought that would probably been a great, side. But again, it's messy league soccer, and that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, and so there we are. There's not really an easy way to transition between these two things, but I guess the transition is everyone expects Inter Miami to do well this year in one way or another, or win something or other, it seems. And a team that just did win something are the Columbus Crew, who the Fire played last week. It was their second away game of the year, their second match in a row against a team from Ohio. And as luck would have it, the team would end up finishing with the same 2-1 score line, falling to the team from Ohio, this time away. The Fire's goal was from Fabian Herbers, his second of the season. That came a few minutes after Jason Russell-Rowe opened the scoring for Columbus, and Mohamed Farsi scored what I believe is the latest regular season match winner in MLS history in the 100th minute, out of 12 minutes of recorded stoppage time. Not exactly the result that I think anyone wanted. The Fire held their own through large parts of the match, even if they didn't exactly have the best finishing ability. They didn't seem to be outplayed defensively again for the second time in a row against a top team, but in the end, just were not able to put it together and get a victory. Both Eray and Joe, you were both there, right? So these are firsthand perspectives, not based on watching it on a screen.
Correct. Yeah, I actually only just watched the highlights like this morning, and the game happened on Saturday just because I wanted to be miserable again. But it was we say it time and time again, it's the Fire just find new ways to fire, frankly. Like just, we gave up a lot of points last year off late goals, whether it be to end in a tie or a loss. And, Joe and I are those diehard fans and you guys as well, because I know you guys have traveled to games. But, when you're a diehard fan who goes and watches your team, get gut punched at the very end, it's not a fun feeling. So it really stinks that I hope it's not a trend this year, and this is hopefully the only time we have to do it. Maybe it'll kick things into gear. But Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really invented a new way to fire in this one. They looked from my gut in my eye, they looked a lot better. Again, they were not played. Again, it comes down to a lot of we're still trying to launch the ball to Kuipers and have him run with it, and then basically it's kick the ball into the box and just see what happens. And then you have which almost happened at the end of the game. Barlow could have scored, but he just whiffed from what we could see. But it looks better. I think the main thing I didn't like some of the tactical, with the substitutions that came in. It's you get the sense again that they were playing for the point, and it's like at this point with how the Fire are going, it's like just leave. Like you had momentum, things were going good. Why are you taking out certain but just taking a look at whatever when they came in.
So let's talk about that for a really quick second, just to make it clear for anyone that wasn't able to catch up with the match. So the Fire started off, they returning to a 4-2-3-1, their traditional formation, which is what we've seen almost universally with maybe 4 or 5 exceptions over the past couple of years, both from Ezra and now from Frank Klopas for the past season and a half. Chase Gasper got the nod, his first start in a Fire uniform. And Kellen DaCosta got his second start. Tobias Salquist got a surprise start after midweek. It's Klopas was making it sound like he still needed more time to integrate with the squad. And then other than that, it was more or less like the players you'd expect. Hugo Kuiper starting as a striker, Brian Gutierrez starting on the wing. Opposite was Marin Haile Selassie and Zerdan Shaqiri. In between the two of them, Fabian Herbers, who's really had, I think, one of the strongest starts of a season that we've seen from any Fire player in a long time, got the nod again, playing in the midfield against across from Kellen DaCosta. And then in the back line, I already mentioned Chase Gasper, Rafa Chihos, Tobias Salquist again playing a center back in his first start, and Alan Aragoni, who has become, it seems like a locket starter with Chris Brady in net. And then talking about the substitutions really quick, was there someone like you thought, like, clearly some defensive subs made later on, but was there like one name that stood out for you? Or
I think the number one thing, it was like the Tom Barlow coming in for Kuipers. Kuipers was playing hard the whole game from what I could see. But it's also like you're going to a chance, where you can win, take a point, whatever, and you take one of your better players out. And Shaqiri, I thought, should have came out when he came out for when they put Gaston in.
So Shaqiri out in the 82nd minute for Gaston Jimenez.
Yep. And then Barlow came in for Kuipers in the 82nd minute as well. And that's when I honestly felt like, all right, we're taking our foot off the gas. We're going to do the old try and steal a point. And that's when it kind of hurt. That's really what kind of set it off for me, is that 82nd substitution.
Yeah, for me too. I'd say that, yeah, the 82nd minute, that's kind of when I said, okay, great, we're going for the draw. Like, to me, it felt disrespectful to the fans that traveled. We had a great showing of fans in Columbus. We had Joe, what was it, like 150, 200 tickets allocated for that game? Like, we were taking up half of it.
It was loud.
It was loud. And some people said they heard us on TV, even if brief. But no, once that happened, and, you saw them making that more defensive-minded substitution for, Gaston for Shaq. But to me, I was surprised, and I guess Guti didn't have his best game ever, but I was surprised that Guti came out, earlier in the game as well. And I don't know, the substitutions, like, I get it if Klopas is really trying to go for the tie, put some maybe, more defensive-minded players, because Guti just can't really play defense, to be fair. He can, but not as effective as some others. But yeah, I don't know. I was baffled.
One thing that was on the screen, if you're watching it on TV as I was that Hugo Kuipers was putting the most mileage on his legs out of pretty much any Fire player, and that they put that on a Chiron a couple of times. That's unusual for a striker. Like, normally a striker stays advanced in the pitch, and last game I think we all talked about Kuiper's biggest play of the match was in the box, but in the Fire's box, because he had a goal line clearance, bailing out.
We
Chris
were
Brady.
right above that.
This time he had no touches in the box. He had touches just outside the box, but again, was going all over the pitch. Like, if you look at his touch map, it looks like he plays almost more like a CDM, like a number 6 or number 8, sort of like the position that Gaston Jimenez or Kellen Acosta would expect to be playing, than a striker. He did have a touch in the box. I think that maybe his first in a Fire uniform. 3 touches in the box. Sorry, Joe just corrected me. But the first time that's happened while he's been wearing a Fire uniform. But still, again, like, the majority of his touches, like 30 touches is what I've got registered, came sort of like more in the midfield. He was running back and forth. He was active on both sides of the ball, and he was doing decent hold-up play, which I think we were told that, like, oh, he's a strike, like, he's like a one club in his bag striker, like he's going to be a mercenary. It's not what we've seen since he's been playing in a Fire uniform. But at the same time, realistically, like, you don't want your striker to be getting touches inside the own 18, your team's 18-yard box often, because that means something's not going right.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw and appreciated the hustle from Kuipers. Like, yeah, we were right there for that goal line clearance. That looked great. And yeah, I mean, like, when you compare him to, Kasper Schmilko, again, I think he just wasn't the right fit for this team. I think he needed better service. I think Kuipers, once we can figure out how to get him service, which is the same problem we've been kind of having. I think once we figure out how to get him service, he'll be good. He hasn't had that many, like, he did hit the post once. I believe that was in the first half. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he looked hungry. He looked so hungry, and for him to, I get it, like, putting in another striker at that point. I don't know. I just, it's still amazing.
Yeah, so
the same problem.
So subbing him off, I think, makes sense in some ways, because he had a lot of miles on his legs, and, like, if he's just gassed and he can't run anymore, like, his game is not, like, he's obviously the most talented guy that can do what he does in the Fire, but that doesn't mean he's the right guy at that moment if he's already put, like, 12, 15 kilometers on his legs, right? Like, there's a human limit that I think he was hitting. But, and, like, if anything, that says something about, like, what, like, the backup options look like at striker for the Fire, where we don't trust that there's a guy off the bench that can finish chances more than Kuipers. Although I agree, like, he didn't do a great job, and no one did, frankly. Like, sorry, Joe, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, it's less of the Kuipers coming off. It's more of who's going in for him. Like, all right, you have Koutsias on the bench. You paid a lot of money to bring him here. Why are we bringing in Tom Barlow? Who, that's my thing. And not that Tom Barlow doesn't have a place on this team. I think he does, but why is he the one that comes in? Because that's what my holdup is.
I know, and I'm with that too. Like, thank you for clarifying that, Joe. Because I agree that Kuipers deserved to come off for his effort. Like, I think he was probably gassed at that point and needed to come off, right? So I'm just wondering too. Yeah, we have not seen. Did Koutsias come in as a sub in one game this season so far, or not even?
In the season opener, he did. Yeah, he made one appearance.
I thought I saw him in red at least once so far. It was a very late.
Well,
appearance.
He wouldn't have been in red for that match. But
maybe I'm thinking
a
media picture then. Okay, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
But yes, I think Koutsias. I think it would have been worth having him in this game, because that dude also really hustles. Like, Barlow, I just don't know enough about Barlow to have an opinion on him. I just am curious why we're not putting in somebody who's been on the team, maybe has gelled better with players, and why we're putting in Barlow. Like, I don't know.
And a player who's occupying a U22 spot, which is a sort of privileged spot on the roster. Koutsias came in, young. He's becoming an important part of the Greek youth setup. Was an important part of the youth Euros qualifying campaign, and yet not making appearances for the Fire. So I think that says something about maybe the team's confidence in him or his game, more than anything else, because it doesn't seem like there's an obvious reason that he shouldn't be the next person up. Because Tom Barlow, I agree with you. Like he's sort of like a known quantity in MLS. Like he's a MLS proven adequate striker figure. Like he's not going to give you a lot more than that. He's not going to give you less than that. I think that we've seen the limitations of his game when he couldn't finish like what I think we all thought was like a pretty glorious chance. And when that happens and a guy can't basically chip a ball over a goalie or go through him or past him, it's not that he's a bad player. It's just like his game has certain limits. And I think that we don't know what those limits are for Koutsias. I don't think that Koutsias knows what his limits are. And I think that we all sort of would like to see more of a player that the team has spent a lot of money and resources to bring in.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like that game could have really used Koutsias for that last 20 minutes if you count stoppage time and everything. I mean, I don't know. I've seen him. I think he's got more pace than Barlow. I think that he could have maybe pulled off something towards the end there. Who knows? We've seen him do it last season.
Yeah. So disappointing result on the whole. I think there were some solid performances that I think we should note. One of them, I think for me especially, was Chase Gasper getting his first start for the Fire. I thought looked a lot better than he did when he came in relief in the second minute or third minute or whatever it was for Andrew Gutman in the season opener. He looked solid. Like he seemed active. He seemed involved. He was able to get on the ball, both recovering the ball defensively. I thought his passes were accurate. I thought that he did a good job. Am I off the mark here, guys?
No,
not at all.
I was impressed with him. I was not impressed in the season opener, but honestly, I mean, he was, it was super unexpected for him to play. Like, I don't think he was expecting to play, at least until maybe the second half with that injury to Gutman. But Gasper impressed me in Columbus. I felt like, I think you're on the mark. I also thought Salquist had a fantastic game, Mr. Toby Salquist. He seemed pretty solid in the back there with Shihos. And then Aragoni, Joe described him as a dog earlier because he's got that dog energy. Like he's there, he's making challenges. There was that one play, Joe, where didn't he make 2 tackles in one play? And he just
2 beautiful tackles right in a row, and the entire section went nuts.
It was probably the highlight of the game, aside from the Fabi goal with VAR check and everything. I mean, that was the second best part of the game for me.
He does look dynamic. And Salquist, it's odd. Klopas was laying hints that he wasn't going to be playing for a while. He said it takes players a long time to integrate. There were some rumors that he may have been sort of still recovering from some kind of an injury or a knock. So it seemed like it could be a while before we saw him start for the Fire or play, let alone start. And then there he was starting. And I think that you're right. He did have a very solid game. So Joe, you were there. What did you think about Salquist's performance?
Salquist looked really good too. I mean, I think, and again, this is going to kill me to say, but he really bailed out Shihos again. Gaspar and Salquist and Aragoni, they were all, Shihos looks like behind a step, but Salquist was really solid, pushing up, especially pushing up the line. He looked good, especially on I was noticing a lot more on the set pieces or the balls that went in. It's especially on the the set pieces with the aerial duels. He looked really good. Yeah, I was really impressed. I think that again, it's now starting to say something that Rafa Shihos is our worst defender.
He definitely looks like he's lost a significant step over the past, year or so. It's kind of unfortunate to see, and I think you can see the frustration from him as well.
And you can definitely see the frustration from Shios, and I'm really disappointed because and like Joe, he's one of my favorite players on the team. I have a Shios jersey, love the guy. Caitlin made him a crocheted lion last year that the Fire still haven't showed on social media anywhere. Like, we love the guy. I just I don't know what's going on so far this season, but it's he's had a couple mistakes, and I don't want to go back and talk about previous games. We've already had a pod for that, but this game, even towards the end, I mean, he kind of whiffed a shot that should have tied the game at the very, very end. He hit it with his shin instead of his foot, and it was just, he just doesn't seem to have the spark he had that he had in recent years.
Although, to be fair to Rafa, I mean, anything in the final third just seemed like it was inaccurate. Like there was some kind of on what was Star Wars night in Columbus, it was some kind of force field or something like that was just making everyone's calibration a little bit off, because every single player that, as soon as it got into that final third, it just seemed like the deeper it went into the final third, the more miscalculated things were. I don't think that Hugo Kuipers makes his way to where he is now, and he's traded for or sold for $12 million if he is not making the shot that he hit off the post consistently, right? So it's just one of those nights, I guess.
It's a very Fire night.
So before we leave this, I don't know if anyone has any last thoughts about this, but DJ, you actually had a very interesting fact. One of the things that I think a lot of us were surprised by was that there were 12 minutes of stoppage time added to the second half, which is a lot. Stoppage time has been creeping up. There have been instructions to referees to start keeping better time about things and more accurately represent when the ball's not in play. So we're seeing, from 2 and 3 minutes being pretty common. 6 and 7 minutes are now the new norm, but 12 minutes is certainly an outlier. Frank Lopez spoke about it in his press conference after the match. But DJ, you had a refereeing note about this.
Well, first of all, before we get to that, I do have to say, on Shios, I wonder when we're going to see a Salquist-Pineda pairing. I want to see that.
Saturday.
That would, I'd be okay with that Saturday or against Houston. But
so, do we all feel that Rafa's no longer the locked-in starter?
I think he needs a break.
Yes. I think there's a reason why he gave up the armband, and I think it's starting to show. That's all I'll say on that. But as for the factoid, so the referee, what was the referee's name again? I should have written it down, but the referee is the older brother of Ricardo Clark. Ricardo Clark was playing in MLS when I pretty much put it in perspective, when Alex Calabrese was still in diapers, he was in MLS.
So a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Ricardo Clark, most famously, for those that don't know about MLS of old, there was, how everybody hates Miami, Austin is hated. There was one player in the league that everyone just hated, and it was Carlos Ruiz. Guy was great, brilliant. Ricardo Clark did the one thing, however, that everyone wanted to do and kicked him in the face. And that Ricardo Clark's older brother refereed that game. So, what the heck? Why?
Well, scab refs.
Shout out Calabrese diapers.
Soon to be available on our really basically non-existent web store, but that would be an amazing product.
For reference, we do need to figure out. Matt has been wearing his Chicago Fire underwear, so we are going well in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
But the 12 minutes of stoppage time just seemed to be very excessive, though. I don't know. As a referee myself, right? I don't speak on behalf of the scab refs who are not siding with the union. But I know Fabi was down for a while. I know we had a VAR review, but I was expecting somewhere in the realm of 6 to 8 minutes added. I don't know where he got 12 from. And I know that's going to be the age-old story.
And Klopa said the same thing. And I mean, part of it, I think, realistically, because I did actually get out a timer and was the clocking every second the ball wasn't in play and like what was going on. Part of it was realistically, I still think 12 minutes was excessive, but I thought it was a crazy excessive amount. But then when I actually was timing how long it took to get like substitutions on the pitch and stuff like that, how long when something as simple as like an offside flag would go up, how long it would take to restart play. Sometimes it would take 35 seconds for a simple throw in to happen. It was excessive by MLS standards. And part of it was just because like the flag would take a while to get up. Like it's not really at the level that I think we've come to expect.
Let me point something out from a refereeing perspective here. There were a few moments in the game where I felt like the referee let the game stop for too long. For sure, just basically what you were saying. Look, I'm not one to be critical of referees, but there were a few moments in the game where, I mean, like you're expected to keep the flag down when there's an offside decision that you're not 100% sure on now with VAR, right? Like when you have a match that has VAR, you wait until the play concludes. There's not a scoring chance anymore, so you're not potentially putting your flag up early and taking away a goal that you were wrong about or something like that. So there's that. But there's also like the throw-ins taking a while, maybe like management of certain yellow cards in the game, stuff like that. Just I felt like the game could have been managed better.
That's a fair shot. And I think that's what was seen from a lot of the replacement referees, where it's not necessarily that big calls are getting made consistently wrong or anything like that. It's that simple, small things take a lot longer to happen. It's that stoppages in play take longer to sort out. It's that sometimes I remember I can't remember which match it was that I was watching, but like there was a referee that clearly hadn't done like practicing making like the VAR box in the mirror simple enough, because they were like, oh, am I doing this right? Like, and you could see it on his face where you're like, am I doing, like, I mean, I don't know. Like I've never had to do this before. Because a lot of them haven't, like they haven't played in matches where there was VAR and now they've got to adjust, and it's an adjustment.
And I don't know I'm sure you guys saw the stat, and for our viewers or listeners, I should say, who haven't seen the stat, but in the first 2 weeks of MLS, I don't know what we're at week 3 now, but in our first 2 weeks of MLS versus last year, there have been 22 match critical incidents that have been reviewed, via VAR, like recommending a review to the referee on the field, versus 2 last year. So remove a 2 from the 22, and that's how many times. I mean, that's a lot of wasted time that gets added on at the end of the game.
It's a lot more time. Although I will say this about that, and I'm not trying to defend them here too much, but like, if VAR is a tool that you've got in your bag and you're not sure that you're making the right choice, I mean, personally, I would rather they go to VAR and use that tool and get the right call rather than pretend that it doesn't exist and make the wrong call, which is, I think, the situation that we're in.
I guess I'll rebuttal. I'll have a rebuttal to that, I guess. So with that, I mean, they can only go to the monitor when the VAR, who right now is being run by one guy, to my understanding, because of this referee union issue, the one VAR official, and I know this is a kind of a tangent, but it did affect this game because we went to VAR. But if there's one guy reviewing all the games basically right now, maybe he has a partner, maybe he has a small team, but versus having a dedicated 3 referees minimum to run the VAR booth, that's going to add a lot of time to these games. So that, I mean, goes to show why there was 12 minutes and why that offside, it took forever to recommend the review. I believe they even, it took forever to recommend the review. It took forever to actually review it. Get the lines going from the Premier League and just make it automatic, not even make it have to go to the monitor, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, those are all fair things to say. And I think that you're right. Like, and by the way, the one VAR is a former referee who is now executive or director level person at PRO, the organization that employs the referees nominally. And so he's kind of back doing what he used to be doing, more or less to take away work from other people. If you look at it from a union perspective. So we've talked a lot about the match. I think that we've more or less covered it. I think that there, again, like the play, I think felt overall good. I don't want to speak for you guys and just tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that defensively the Fire held their own against one of the better teams in the league. I think that it looked like an overall decent performance, except for playing the final third wasn't really there. But Joe and Eray, like, talk about the match day experience because you guys are both there.
Match day experience is great. Lore.com is beautiful. It's, I love the concourses. Overall, everyone was really friendly. But the beer selection at this stadium, bar none, is amazing. It was so good. They have more or less, they have a bunch of collaborations that are just for the team. And and I love Hazy Pitch, but I don't always want an IPA. Even though it's a lighter IPA, might want something different. But their work IPA, it's from Zaftig Brewing, amazing. I was drinking most of the time their house beer, which is a lager, great. It was like the best. It was exactly what I wanted in a game like that. They have Fort Columbus, it was like a Schwarz beer, delicious. But to top it all off, like I've been saying the Fire need to have this beer, and they never have it. But they had Pollander there. It was so good, and it's exactly what I wanted at a soccer match.
One of the best executed lagers in history.
Yeah, just great, just great.
Bobby and Herbers would have loved it.
Yes,
and
that's
the one thing we didn't talk about, by the way, before.
Hence my transition.
Yeah. No, Fabian Herbers, I think, was the man of the match for the Fire. Pretty clearly with a goal. 2 goals so far to start the 2024 campaign.
Yes.
2 goals and assists. So 3 points in 3 matches. Starting on fire, like literally and figuratively. Looks like a better player than I think we've seen him ever be in a Fire uniform. Coming in on his 5th season, if I'm doing math correctly on the top of my head.
Yeah.
5th or 6th. Yeah.
Yes, 6th season.
But my only critique is we need to, and the Fire do this too, we need to stop Star Wars night. Like, why does everyone have to have a Star Wars night? We just gotta stop. It's not fun. The only thing I had fun was Darth Vader did flip me off from the supporter section because I was yelling something about, it was like FU, it was like FU Empire, or the Empire hires, no, it was the Empire hires scab referees. That's what I was doing. And then I got flipped off by Darth Vader. So that was fun. But overall, great time. Especially the march in. Shout out to everyone that came out marching in with the smoke and the banners. Everything was really cool. Fans were friendly. And then one last critique: stop putting visitor supporters next to the family section with the U11 soccer teams. Just please. All it takes is a couple people. If there was anything, I didn't see anything. Apparently there were some complaints, but just stop. Be smarter.
Beer is going to get thrown around when your team scores. That's just going to happen anywhere in any sport that you go to. And if it's going to be a problem, then don't, I don't know. I'm still of the belief, we see this in Europe, that would be my critique of the game too, frankly. That was probably the worst part, is that they do this in Nashville and Columbus because they're both practically the same stadium, like cookie cutter. If you've been to both of them, like the Fire away, in terms of the Fire away section, at least, it's like identical view, identical setup. They put you in the far corner of one of the upper sections, which is expected for away fans. However, I do not understand why they leave us with like a 2-row buffer between us and any other fans. Right? Like, we're a supporters section and you're putting families in front of the supporters section. And, some people will say, oh, they're too loud. They're making too much noise. They're throwing beer. Like, that's what a supporters section is. So I think that when there's enough away fans, like, not in all cases, but when it's a big group of away fans, I think that regardless, they need their own section. And I get it. MLS ticket sales, yada, yada. But in Turkey, like when I go to Galatasaray matches and stuff, they literally put the away fans in a cage. So they can't interfere with anybody around them. I'm not saying go to that extreme. I do not want MLS fans to be in cages. But yeah.
Taping off a couple seats is not enough to really make a significant difference. They were zip tied. But also, again, just to close it out, if you're a Fire fan, if you're a soccer fan, I would definitely make the trip. The fans are friendly. There's plenty of bars and stuff to do around. It was my first time in Columbus. I've always hated Ohio from afar, but it was a really good experience. I'm happy to do it, and just don't depend on Electrify America to get you home.
EV chargers are a problem in this country. They are on websites, but they do not work in practice. I think this is something that a couple people on this podcast have learned the hard
Shout
way.
out Midwest EV.
Yeah. Eray's channel, Midwest EV. Check it out if you have
There
not
will
already.
be a match day or a travel vlog. If you'd like to see how I drove 10 hours each way, 18 hours round trip from Milwaukee to go see us lose in 90 plus 10.
So a story with a great ending. That's always the best way to sell it.
I hate myself sometimes. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I think that we've talked enough about this match. Although if we went long, that's okay because the match did as well.
Hey.
So let's move on. Looking forward, Fire's next home game is happening this Saturday, the 16th of March, which is also, by the way, the day that a lot of St. Patrick's Day celebrations are going to be going on around the city, at 1 p.m. And because it's St. Patrick's Day and there's going to be drunk people throughout Chicago, they have decided to make it Children's Day because this is the world where we live in. Although, to be honest, it is the Fire's only matinee. The match kicks off at 1 p.m. local time. So that makes sense because you don't want your kids' night to be happening at a 7:30 kickoff because to a certain extent, if you're doing that, you're not being responsible as a team because it is hard for people that are driving long distances or even short distances getting out of matches at Soldier Fields parking to be able to make it home for a responsible bedtime.
I'd be more scared. I think it's like I'm scared for the children if that was a 7:30 game. And I'm also scared for drunk Fire fans that love Sparky. If I'm Sparky, I'm staying in the family section and having security around me because drunk Fire fans love, and I mean love with a capital LUV, love Sparky.
That's 100% true. So 1 p.m. kickoff does not mean that people will not be able to imbibe beforehand because, as we all know, the tailgate starts however many hours before the match it has to start. And it doesn't matter what time that is. But their opponent, CF Montreal, I think a lot of us penciled this in before the season started as being the Fire's first must-win game, realizing that before that they were facing kind of the gauntlet. The team that has had the most points over the past several seasons, followed by the reigning Supporters Shield winner, followed by the reigning MLS Cup winner. Like, that's not an easy way to start things. And I don't think that anyone ever thought that a game against Montreal was going to be easy, but I think that we thought it was a clearly winnable game against a team that was in transition with a new head coach. Their new head coach, Laurent Courtois, brought in from, in the twist of irony, the Columbus Crew 2 team, so their reserve team, where he had been for the past couple seasons. The Crew 2 have played, I don't know, anybody else here watch MLS Next Pro more than occasionally?
No, unless the Fire 2 are playing.
Okay, fair enough. Some teams do not really have a recognizable, discernible look or feel. They just sort of play like almost like a recreational soccer team in some ways, like a very sort of like templated feeling to their formations, to their tactics. The Crew 2 under Laurent Courtois from the time that this team started never played that way. They played a distinctive brand of soccer. They won the MLS Next Pro competition one year. They made it to a final another year. They have been a very good team. Laurent Courtois was the head coach both seasons, and was brought on from the Crew 2 to Montreal and kind of like a reverse switch, having brought Wilfried Nancy from Montreal to Columbus last season. I think a lot of us were thinking that because of the coaching change, because of the style change, it would be a slow start. That has been the opposite of the case. CF Montreal now second in the East with 7 points, tied with Inter Miami, who they just beat by a 3-2 score line on Sunday. How are we feeling about this matchup, guys?
It's a must win. That's what I think. It's a must win. I think it's a winnable game, but I also think, we have to win games like this because this is the team that I think that we're going to be battling. If we're going to be on that fringe playoff side, this is the team we're going to be battling. So I definitely think like it's a must win. If we don't come out with at least a point, it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be bad, but it's going to really start to hurt the momentum that we have from the return to red and the excitement that comes around with it. So I just think we need at least a point or a very, 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 very strong showing.
So in the words of Yogi Berra, the great American philosopher, it gets late very early, and this will be around the 10% mark of the season. Will happen at some minute of this match. Eray, how are you feeling about this?
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little nervous just because I've seen how Montreal have played the first 3 games, and props to them. They look solid, and I'm scared. But I think that I honestly think this Columbus loss, if I'm being optimistic, should, no pun intended, ignite the fire to know they need to win this game. Like
you saying no pun intended, it just makes it seem like the pun was actually
it might have been intended. I just might be throwing everybody off. Pun intended. The fire need a fire below their butts. I mean, like they need to win this game.
They need to win. I think that we've seen Hugo Kuipers getting more involved in the match. I think that, like, obviously you don't pay $12 million for a guy to not score in the opening month of your season. And that would be the situation the Fire would be facing. Although I think that we've, again, been surprised by how strong Montreal's come out of the gate. And they've gotten goals from a number of different places. I think not all of them whom we would expect it from. Laurent Courtois, their new head coach, was brought in because they were surprised for some reason that Hernan Losada, the coach they brought in last year to replace Wilfried Nancy, who they let depart, didn't really want to play a possession game, which is interesting because he's never played a possession game before in his life. They wanted to be a team that was like the Montreal Crew when Georgie was playing for them that one year, where when Georgie Mihailovic was playing with them, they liked the ball, same as the Crew do now. Like, they wanted to own the ball. They wanted to have a lot of possession. They wanted to build out from the back, and they wanted to punish you when you made mistakes. And that was sort of Courtois' game model. We haven't seen it completely yet. They only had 42% of the ball against Inter Miami. They still managed a 3-2 victory. So a team that's sort of changing, I think evolving. I think that Courtois is practical enough to realize that, like, the full version of what he wants his team to play with will not be happening when they are away their first 6 weeks because of renovations to Stade Olympique, where they normally start their season, and because it's his first year with the team. So we will have to see, I guess, what lineup he rolls out, how they want to play, again, because they've been fairly pragmatic so far to start the season. DJs, have you caught any of their matches so far?
I did see their game against Miami, and they played a lot better than Montreal has the last few years. So, but yeah, I don't want to say I'm optimistic, but I do think the Fire know they've got to walk away with a win.
Going without a win would basically make it a month into the season without a victory, which is a tough thing for a group of people that are trying to gel together.
It would be one of the worst starts in Fire history.
I have a bold prediction. If things start going the wrong way, I think Fabian Herbert sees a red card because I see the passion from him. I don't know if that's actually a bold prediction, but
the fact that Fabi has not gotten a yellow is amazing this season.
I don't know what Fabi did in the offseason to reset himself. Wasn't he the one who went skiing or something that we saw? Was that him? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about, but all I know is that's not what I thought you were going to say, and I was about to quit the podcast and call you and start yelling at you.
Okay.
Negative Eray.
I swear somebody said that they saw Instagram pictures of him like going to ski resorts skiing and stuff like that. Like,
that may have been the case. He may have been trying to get attention of Emmanuel Neuer or something like that.
Thank God he didn't break his leg. Oh my God. But no, I mean, in all reality, I think that, in my opinion, the person who should get the armband on Saturday is Fabian Herbers, and I cannot believe I'm saying that genuinely.
Well, longest tenured first team player, leading scorer so far through 3 matches. Obviously, not a lot of great results in that, but he's played with heart the entire time. And yeah, like it does sort of seem like he had some sort of, I don't know, like hypnotic therapy sessions where he was like, what if I replaced yellows with goals? And I think that's a net win for everybody. If there was some psychological, like some vision that he had where it's like, if every time I got a yellow, instead I just got a goal, everything would be better. If that's what happened, I feel like that may be what happened, and it's kind of to everyone's benefit. But he's come out looking, oddly, I think younger than he did when he was playing in 2019. Like he's been faster. He's been in the right place at the right time. He's played with the same kind of tenacity that we've come to expect from him, which isn't surprising, but the tenacity I think has been measured and controlled enough where he's been getting, scoring opportunities and not like dirty tackles that get him a card.
Yeah, I've never been the hugest Herbers fan. I always thought of him as a depth piece. Like I thought he was good guy to have in the squad to come off the bench and everything, but he has proved me wrong in these first 3 games. I think if everyone played with the heart of Fabian Herbers, we'd be 3-0, frankly.
Definitely has been showing the passion. DJ, how are you feeling about him?
I mean, I like the idea of Fabi actually being the MVP so far this season. This is every year. There's always that one player that always just steps up beyond belief. In 2020, it was Pineda. In 21, I believe it was 21. It was Luca, so on and so forth. This year, Herbers is stepping up to the plate, and I am more than happy to see him do that.
I'm looking forward to a good showing from him against Montreal on Saturday. And I think that's a good segue to just the elephant in the room that I want to address is Sheridan Shaqiri. I did not feel like he had the passion that we needed from him on Saturday. He seemed like his body language seemed like he did not want to be there. Even as he's walking out, he's kind of like storming to the locker room. He didn't seem to talk to players. I get maybe that's due to frustration from the results, but he gave like the fans like one clap and continued kind of looking down at the ground to the locker room. I don't know if it's just frustration of giving up the late goal, which is certainly possible, but this is when, we talked about in an earlier pod about Chiho's, we thought he lost the armband, but it turns out that he, gave it up, and Shaqiri was made captain. I don't know if Chiho's decided that or if that's a Klopas thing. I'm guessing that Klopas decided who the next captain's going to be. But I want a captain like Fabian Herbers, and it's Montreal. Whatever happens on Saturday, I think that whoever the captain on the team is, which is probably going to be Shaqiri. Let's be real again, because that's what Klopas said. That's who Klopas said was going to be the captain. But I think the captain of this team needs to lead this team. Otherwise, we're not going to get results. Like we need to have the captain on Saturday motivate his team and not act like the person who least wants to be there, in my opinion.
That's definitely a fair request, I think. Joe, you seem to be contemplating something along this vein.
I was just contemplating my hatred of Eray. But sure, give Fabi the armband.
All right. Certainly he's been playing like the guy that should have it. DJ, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think Eray kind of summed it up pretty well. I mean, look, I said this before. Shaq is on the last year of his contract. That can be one of two things. You can either play really well knowing he's like last year, or he play like absolute dog shit. So far, it's been the latter.
Besides the penalty goal, which, you expect him to score given his experience.
Well, Valentano's never saved a PK in his life, so to be fair.
Yeah. Matt's friend Roman. But no, I think the key on Montreal is a showing from Shaq is what I'm trying to say, I think. I think that he's going to be starting and he's going to be the central playmaker. If Dude doesn't step up, we're not going to win the game.
That's fair to say. MLS teams more or less live and die by how well their number 10 performs. Their central attacking midfielder. And that's been Shaqiri. That's where he's been playing. Guti has sort of been occupying some of that space sometimes. But in title, if not in fact all the time, it's been Shaqiri. He's got the armband, and I think that it's fair to ask for leadership from that position. So all that said, game is coming up a little bit earlier than we normally expect, again with the matinee. So I'm going to go around the table and ask for score predictions. DJ, you first.
Chicago Fire 3, Montreal Impact 1. There will be goals by, I'm going to say, Fede gets a goal off a set-piece header, and probably Barlow gets a double.
Barlow with a brace against the Impact.
The only reason I'm saying this is because for some reason, Klopas has done this twice now, where against a really good team from the Northeast, the Fire win an early game 3-1. And there's a guy, that random dude that for no reason scores 2 goals in the game. I want to see that again this year against Montreal. That would be the most hilarious crap ever.
I love it.
For those keeping score at home, by the way, I've got about a decade and a half on DJ, but he has about a decade and a half on Fire history and his knowledge of it on me.
Tim has experience. I have autism.
I don't think that there's been a thing that has happened to this team since 1998 that DJ's not aware of.
I believe you. Sorry, I'm just okay.
We need to clip that. I need to clip.
The first post on the Instagram is just me shouting, Tim has the experience, I have the autism.
I think
That's
we have a title for the podcast.
Post.
That's the title for the podcast.
All right, so let's bring it back together, guys. All right, what's your score prediction?
I am choosing to be optimistic. I think the Fire are going to... Shut up, Joe. I see you moving your hands. I think the Fire are going to win 1-0 with a stoppage time winner from Kuipers.
Do you want to guess the minute? Will it be... What's the over-under for... If I were to say 97th minute?
I am going to go with 90 plus 4.
All right. So early by Fire stoppage time goal standards.
Ohio
of recent
standards,
history.
yes.
By standards that have happened, like goals that have happened in Fire matches, yeah. Joe, you're up.
I'm going to go 4-3.
Oh.
We're going to have a brace by Kuipers. Fabio will get another goal. We'll do a Shaqiri pen, and we'll give up 3 goals after the 82nd minute when we do our usual subs.
Honestly, it started off pretty optimistic, and then you thought, anyway, I like it. I think it's realistic.
By the way, for those that are not aware and cannot see what's going on because we can see each other on video as we're recording, there have been some, we'll just say hand gestures not necessarily appropriate for all audiences going on between Joe and Eray over the past minute or so.
I promise we love each other. He was in my wedding. I love him, but I also hate
Joe
him.
is my co-pilot to Columbus. So we've seen a lot of each other this weekend. Let's just say it's almost too much, but we love each other.
And they both made it back alive, so that says something about things.
Yeah,
they are the siblings of the Men in Red team.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah,
Matt's in there too,
and Jack.
Fair enough.
That doesn't count though.
Shout out Jack.
No, Jack was the most responsible and most mature of all of us this weekend, if we're being real.
Well, I mean, that's not a surprise at all.
Doesn't that make you a little bit disappointed in him, though? That was a joke.
Nope, not at all.
I just want Jack to be like a little bit less responsible sometimes.
Oh, that's when you give him some Doritos. He gets really excited about
Doritos are his alcohol. He's like he starts talking shit when you bring out the Doritos.
All right, well, there's another word that we're going to have to get Austin to bleep out. So on that note, I'm just going to say it's going to be a 2-1 victory because 2-1 seems like the Fire scoreline so far this season. and it's at home. I think that they can beat Montreal, despite the fact that they've been playing stronger than we thought. Beating a messiless Miami is not, I think, the feat that a lot of people are making it out to be, even if they have a guy with one knee and Sergio Busquets, I don't know, running around stomping on guys or whatever he's doing. So that's my prediction. Any final words, guys, before we close this out?
Gary, please play well. Please, please, please. I'm begging you to please show that you care, even a little bit.
I just want to say thank you to all the Men in Red 97 supporters for listening and enjoying our content and watching us on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. And for the surprising couple of people that came to say hello to me in Columbus, I appreciate it. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Men in Red 97. Follow us on MIR 97 Pods. Men in Red 97 on Twitter, X, and subscribe on YouTube. We have a lot of great content coming up. And it's a great, great group of guys, people, if you would, of putting together a great amount of content for a legendary club that is Chicago Fire. We have great and amazing and, using the great word all the time, great writers. We have excellent, media people. We're doing big things. We're going to make everything great. Let's go Fire. Woo!
I want to hear a state of Men in Red 97 from Joe Tipman. Like, give me an hour of that.
Joe is doing a lot of the work for me, listing out all those things, which thank you, Joe. That did help my job become a lot easier. Alan will be back soon. He is currently engaged in the opera, which you can love or make jokes about or love and make jokes about at the same time, as I'm choosing to do right now. DJ, any final words? All right. Well, there's another one. That just seems to be a pattern. All right. Making Austin's job even harder. Eray, any words that are not 4 letters?
You stumped me there. You stumped me.
I'm just going to take this as read then. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week. Alan, I believe, will be able to join us, although not 100% sure exactly what the schedule is. It may be the week after, actually, now that I look at my calendar. But we appreciate you listening. Come on, you Men in Red.
Long live US Open.
Tim has experience. I have autism.